I always thought I knew my body. I mean, I'd been through enough to understand when something felt off. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what I was about to discover. I wasn't just pregnant. I was pregnant with twins. And somehow I had no idea. No morning sickness. No obvious belly. No flutters or kicks. Just the normal stress of everyday life and a strange fatigue I chalked up to overworking. It all started one rainy Tuesday morning. I remember because I was late for work and I slipped getting into my car. That fall didn't hurt much, but it sent me into a panic I couldn't explain. My heart started racing like something deep inside me knew something was wrong, even though at that point I didn't suspect pregnancy. I hadn't had a regular cycle in months, but my doctor had already told me it was probably due to stress and hormone imbalance. I believed that. I had no reason not to. But that day, something shifted. I felt this tightness in my lower back and a strange pressure in my stomach. I ended up calling in sick and dragging myself to urgent care, more out of anxiety than pain. The nurse took my vitals, asked me a few questions, and sent me off for some tests. I wasn't expecting anything major. Maybe dehydration, maybe stress. But when the doctor walked back in with wide eyes and a half smile, my world changed. "You're pregnant," he said gently, almost as if he didn't believe it himself. I laughed at first. Actually laughed. "There's no way," I said. "I'd know. I'd feel it." But he showed me the test results. Not just pregnant, but far enough along that it made no sense how I hadn't noticed. I was still reeling from the shock when he ordered an ultrasound. I laid back, heart pounding, mind racing. And then silence. The kind of silence that stretches and crawls under your skin. The technician looked at the screen, then back at me, then back at the screen. Her eyebrows lifted just slightly before she cleared her throat and said, "You might want to sit up for this." That's when she told me. 2 heartbeats. 2 tiny bodies. Twins. I sat there frozen, unable to breathe. My hands trembled on the crinkly white paper of the exam bed. How could I be carrying 2 babies and not know? What kind of mother does that make me? I started questioning everything, my health, my memory, my life choices. Was I so out of tune with myself that I missed something this big? But the bigger question was how? And more importantly, why now? Because right after I found out, something happened. Something that made this mystery pregnancy feel even more terrifying. And if I thought the shock of discovering I was pregnant with twins was bad, what came next nearly broke me. I left the clinic in a daze, barely remembering how I got home. The world outside seemed too bright, too loud, like everything was moving too fast while I was stuck in slow motion. Pregnant with twins. I kept saying it in my head, hoping it would finally make sense. But it didn't. Not even a little. I hadn't been with anyone seriously for over a year. My last relationship ended badly, and I had no interest in dating after that. I couldn't think of a single moment where pregnancy was even a possibility. It just didn't add up. I sat on the couch, my phone clutched in my hand, debating whether to call anyone, but I didn't even know what I'd say. My mom would panic. My best friend would demand answers I didn't have. And the father, I couldn't even picture a face. That was the scariest part. How could something so life-changing happen without me knowing? No signs, no memories, no warning. It felt like my body had betrayed me, like a part of my life had been stolen and erased without explanation. The next morning, I went back to the doctor's office to get a full scan and speak with someone more in depth. I needed answers. Real ones. The OBGYN was kind, soft-spoken, and tried to ease me into the truth. She confirmed everything. The twins were healthy, about 23 weeks along, and measuring well. That should have been good news, but it only made things worse. 23 weeks. That was more than 5 months. How does someone go 5 months without a single clue? She brought up something called a cryptic pregnancy. Apparently, it's rare but real. Some women don't show any signs, or the symptoms are so subtle they're easily dismissed. Irregular periods, mild weight changes, stress-related fatigue, all things I had. But what she couldn't explain was how I didn't feel movement. By this stage, most moms feel kicks, rolls, something. But I felt nothing. It was like my body had locked away the truth, kept it hidden on purpose. I left the clinic with new photos of two tiny babies and even more confusion than before. That night, I stared at the sonogram images for hours. Two little faces. Two tiny spines. It should have made me feel something joyful, right? But all I felt was fear. Something wasn't right. And I wasn't just imagining it. Because it started that night. The strange noises. The flickering lights in my apartment. At first, I told myself it was my nerves, the stress messing with my senses. But then I started hearing whispers. Not full words, just soft sounds, like voices coming from the walls when the house was quiet. I tried turning on the TV to drown them out, but they didn't go away. In fact, they got louder. Closer. I thought maybe it was the neighbors. Maybe I was just tired. But when I went to the kitchen to grab water, I noticed something that stopped me cold. The sonogram photo I had placed on the fridge was gone. And in its place was a blank white paper with two tiny red dots. I stood frozen in the kitchen, my heart thudding so hard it felt like it might crack my ribs. That blank white paper with two tiny red dots, it made no sense. I hadn't put it there. I lived alone. No one else had keys. I checked the locks, the windows. Everything was still locked from the inside. Nothing was broken. Nothing stolen. Just that photo gone and that eerie piece of paper left behind like some kind of message I wasn't supposed to understand. I wanted to believe it was a prank. Maybe I'd accidentally thrown the photo away without realizing. Maybe the dots were from food or ink or something stupid and explainable. But deep down I knew better. I could feel it. Something wasn't right. I could feel it in my chest, in my skin, like an invisible hand hovering just behind me. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch with every light on, wrapped in a blanket, clutching my phone in one hand and the ultrasound photo I had saved in my purse in the other. It was the only one left. The next day, I decided I needed to tell someone. I called my friend Jess, who had always been my voice of reason. She came over right away, thinking I was having some kind of breakdown. I could see it in her face when I told her about the twins, how she smiled gently, like she was trying not to say the wrong thing. But when I showed her the scan, her smile faded. Then I showed her the blank paper with the dots. Her expression changed. "Have you told anyone else?" she asked quietly, almost in a whisper. "No," I said. "Why?" She took a long pause before answering. "Because I've seen something like this before." That stopped me cold. Jess used to work at a women's shelter, helping women in crisis situations. She said a girl once came in, quiet, scared, confused, claiming she was pregnant without knowing how it happened. No signs. No memory. Just woke up one day and knew something was wrong. The girl kept talking about whispers in her sleep, symbols showing up in her apartment, things disappearing and reappearing without reason. No one believed her. They thought she was having a mental breakdown. Then one day, she just left. No will be. Just gone. I wanted to tell Jess it wasn't the same. That my case was medical, that I had real proof, ultrasounds, blood tests. But then she said something that made my skin crawl. That girl, she was pregnant with twins too. I didn't want to hear any more. But I couldn't stop listening. Jess looked scared, more scared than I'd ever seen her. She didn't think I was crazy. She believed me. And that was almost worse. Because if I wasn't imagining things, if this wasn't all in my head, then whatever was happening wasn't just strange. It was dangerous. And it wasn't over. That night, I heard the whispers again. But this time, they said my name. I didn't sleep again after that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd hear them. Those whispers, soft and steady, like breath against my ear. And always the same thing. My name. Over and over. Drawn out and chilling, as if whatever was saying it wasn't even human. I started to wonder if I was losing my mind. But Jess stayed with me the next few nights, and she heard them too. That's when I knew this wasn't all in my head. Something was really happening. We started looking for answers. Jess dug through old case files and her notes from the shelter, trying to remember the girl who vanished. She found a name, Elena Cruz, and a police report stating she disappeared 2 weeks before her due date. No signs of struggle.
No witnesses.
Just gone. The case went cold. There was something else, though. In the report, the officer noted that her apartment had symbols drawn on the windows and a trail of reds leading from the living room to the bathroom. Almost exactly like what I'd seen. We didn't know what to make of it, but it felt like the more we searched, the closer something was getting. The air in my apartment had changed, heavier, colder. One night, while Jess was asleep on the couch, I heard tapping from the bedroom. Not knocking. Tapping. Slow, rhythmic. I walked in, heart pounding, and saw the sonogram photos, now all 3 of them, arranged neatly on my bed. Except they weren't mine. They were different.
Blurry. Off.
The babies in the photos weren't curled up peacefully like before. They were facing forward. Eyes open. I screamed. Jess rushed in, and when she saw them, she backed away slowly. She didn't say a word. We left that night and stayed at her place, but it didn't help. The whispers followed me there. And then came the dreams, if they were even dreams. I kept seeing a woman in white, standing at the foot of my bed, holding something in her arms. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She would just stare at me with this look, like sadness and rage twisted together, and whisper, "They're not yours." Over and over again. "They're not yours." I didn't know what to believe anymore. Was I really pregnant with twins? Were they mine? Was something or someone trying to take them from me? Or, worse, trying to return them? Jess started researching folklore, spiritual attacks, anything that might explain what we were experiencing. One story kept coming up, tales of unborn twins lost in ritual, spirits seeking a body to return through. It sounded ridiculous until everything started lining up. The dots. The symbols. The silence in my womb when there should have been movement. The woman in my dreams. That night I woke up gasping. My stomach, it felt different. Lighter. I reached for it in the dark, and for the first time, I felt nothing.
No tightness.
No pressure. Just emptiness. And then I saw it, on the mirror across the room. A single sentence, written in condensation. "They're here." I stumbled out of bed, heart pounding, eyes locked on the fogged-up mirror. "They're here." My hands trembled as I reached for the light switch, but when the bulb flickered to life, the writing had vanished. Like it was never there.
But I knew what I saw.
And worse, I could feel it. The room was colder than before, like the warmth had been sucked out of the air completely. Jess rushed in seconds later, half asleep, eyes wide. "What happened?" she asked. I couldn't speak. I just pointed to the mirror, still shaking. She looked, then turned back to me, her voice low. "We need to leave.
Now."
But when we tried, the door wouldn't open. The knob turned, but the lock was jammed, like something was holding it from the other side. Jess wanted to try the window, but it was stuck too, sealed tight even though we'd opened it just the day before. That's when we heard it, a soft cry. Like a baby. Faint, distant, but definitely there. We froze. Then another cry. Louder this time.
Coming from the hallway.
Jess looked at me, fear written all over her face. We weren't alone. I reached for my phone, hands shaking, but it was dead. No reason. It had been charged. Jess's was the same.
Dead.
Every light in the apartment suddenly dimmed, humming quietly like a storm was coming. And the crying, now it was echoing through the walls. That's when we heard a knock. 3 slow knocks on the bedroom door. Not the front door, the one right in front of us. Jess grabbed my hand, and I could feel her pulse racing just like mine. Another knock. Then the doorknob slowly began to turn. We didn't wait to see what was behind it. We ran to the bathroom and locked ourselves inside. I collapsed against the tub, clutching my stomach out of instinct, but something was wrong. That strange emptiness was still there. Like the life I had been carrying was gone. I couldn't stop shaking. I kept whispering to myself, "This isn't real. This isn't real." But the crying outside the door wouldn't stop. Jess sat beside me, pulling her knees up to her chest. Then she said something I didn't expect. "I think you've been marked." I looked at her, confused. Marked. She nodded slowly. What if they weren't trying to take your babies? What if they were trying to leave something with you? What if it's not about what's missing, but what's been put inside you instead? Her words sank into me like ice. The red dots. The dreams. The woman whispering, "They're not yours." And now, the sudden silence in my body. I couldn't wrap my head around it, but a cold realization crept over me. What if the twins I thought were mine never were? Just then, the lights went out completely. And from the dark hallway came not one, but two voices in unison. "Mommy, can we come in now?" I held my breath, frozen on the bathroom floor, just clutching my arm as those voices echoed through the dark apartment. "Mommy, can we come in now?" They were soft, almost sweet, but there was something unnatural about the way they spoke, like they were mimicking children instead of actually being them. We didn't answer. We couldn't. My body was trembling so badly, I could barely sit up straight. Then came the sound of tiny footsteps, not running, just slowly padding across the wooden floor, getting closer to the bathroom. Jess whispered, "Don't move. Don't speak." But I was already reaching toward my stomach again, desperate to feel anything, movement, pain, a kick, anything to prove that my twins were still mine. Still real. Still alive. But there was nothing. Just silence and that heavy, empty weight inside me. The doorknob turned. Slowly. Deliberately. And then stopped. I wanted to scream, but my throat was dry, like every sound had been sucked out of me. Jess grabbed the shower rod, holding it like a weapon, though we both knew it wouldn't help. Then came another whisper, closer this time, and clearer than ever. "We want to be born, but not like last time." Last time? My mind spun, trying to make sense of it. That phrase kept repeating in my head. Not like last time. Jess stared at me, her eyes wide. "They're not new," she whispered. "They've done this before." That's when the memories hit me. Flashes. Dreams I thought I had forgotten. A hospital room. Screaming.
Blood.
My own voice, shouting names I didn't remember. I saw myself on an operating table, shadows all around me. And the same two faces. Pale, identical, eyes too dark, too deep. I gasped and jerked forward, clutching my chest. I had been pregnant before. Years ago. A miscarriage I had blocked out. I was barely 20. I had been told it was over before it even began. But what if it wasn't? What if something stayed behind? The whispers turned into cries. Loud, angry cries now. The walls trembled. The mirror on the cabinet cracked down the middle. And suddenly I knew what I had to do. I stood up and opened the door. Jess grabbed my arm. "What are you doing?" "They're not mine. They never were. But they think I owe them something." I stepped into the hallway. The lights flickered and finally steadied. And there they were, two small children standing at the end of the hallway. Not fully real. Their eyes were hollow. Their hands reaching out. "You can't stay here," I said, my voice shaking. "Whatever you are, you have to go back." They tilted their heads. One smiled. "We already have." Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my side. I gasped, fell to my knees. Jess screamed behind me, trying to pull me back, but it was too late. Everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was in a hospital bed. Monitors beeping. A nurse checking vitals. "You're lucky," she said gently. "The twins are doing just fine." I blinked. Twins. She smiled.
Yes.
Healthy and strong. Just like last time. And walked away. I lay there in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together what had just happened. The nurse's words echoed in my head. Healthy and strong. Just like last time. But that was the part one didn't understand. There was no last time. Not officially. Not in any medical record. Yet the moment she said it, a wave of emotion rushed through me, like some locked door in my memory had swung open. I remembered the pain, the fear, the loss. I remembered being told, years ago, that I had miscarried. I never saw their faces, never got to hold them. The hospital called it a chemical pregnancy, and I was too young, too overwhelmed to ask questions. I buried it deep, told myself to move on. But now I couldn't help but wonder, had something lingered in that silence all these years? Something unfinished? Jess came into the room later, eyes red and tired, holding a small bouquet. She didn't say much at first, just sat beside me and took my hand. Finally, she whispered, "They're gone now, right?" I nodded slowly, though a part of me wasn't sure. The apartment had been cleared. No signs of them. No more whispers. No red dots. Just quiet. Peaceful. Like the nightmare had finally ended. But something still stayed with me. The twins, my real twins, were alive. Real. I could feel them inside me again. The doctors said I had passed out from severe stress and dehydration. They ran all the tests. Everything was normal. No sign of trauma. No explanation for the blackouts, the hallucinations, or the whispers. Just a medical miracle, they called it. A mother under pressure. Maybe they were right. Maybe grief, guilt, and memory played tricks on us when we least expected. Still, I knew what I experienced. And Jess did too. Before I was discharged, I made one last stop. I asked a nurse if there was any record of a woman named Elena Cruz ever being admitted there. She hesitated, then typed quietly on her computer.
She was here, she said.
7 years ago. Vanished during her 3rd trimester. It was never solved. I felt a cold chill run through me. I left the hospital that day holding tight to the thought that maybe, just maybe, whatever had haunted me had found peace. Or maybe it had found someone else. Back home, I took the sonogram photos and tucked them into a small box, along with the piece of paper that once had those 2 red dots. I couldn't throw it away. Not out of fear, but out of understanding. Some stories never truly end. They just change form. Every now and then, I still hear faint sounds in the night, soft giggles, distant lullabies. But now, they don't scare me. They remind me of what I've lost and what I've been given. I was pregnant with twins I never knew about. But now I know them. I feel them. And this time, I'll never forget.